I knew this thing would come in handy for something. What's up, kid family? Welcome back to the channel. You know, on this video, we're gonna talk about what motor we actually picked up for a great low price. I figured I might start tearing into the motor, but what good is that if you don't even know what motor this is, what family, what's the history, what are the roots of this GM Ecotec motor? So stick around, guys. I'll explain to you the information I acquired over the last couple of days. That way, I know a little bit more about the motor, you know a little bit about the motor, and then yeah, we can go from there. How about that? Yeah. You know what? I'm already drunk, man. I don't think I can film this video. I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, guys, on a serious note, we picked this up off of OfferUp. I won't tell you guys the price now until the series is over, but it's a very common engine found in most vehicles. Now, the GM Ecotec engine, yes, and I do have a handy sheet here that I'm going to be reading for you guys since I cannot remember all of this. And hopefully, if my editing skills are good enough, I'm going to blur out half of this side and write down the specs as well so it's easier. But we'll see about that. Anyway, long story short, all these GM Ecotec engines from Chevy have a code name of L850. That's like the most general version name of this series of motors, and there's many motors under the L850 that clearly we will see just in a second. I'm going to provide to you guys the information for three basic most important motors under the L850, okay? But there's many more motors that were made in these cars, and they have different variations internally inside the engine. So this motor, from what I believe, the owner said, well, it wasn't even the owner, it was the landlord of a building that he said that the owner had a Malibu. So I don't know what year the Malibu was, but hey, it was in a Chevy Malibu. And someone's coming in here. Someone's coming in, okay. Hello? All right, I'm okay, buddy. We'll stop recording. All right, great news, guys. We just got some mail, and it looks like I'm going on a Caribbean cruise for 12 days and 12 nights, all inclusive, paid for. And always the same old mail. Anyway, guys, let's continue where we left off. The L850 motor, eh? I'm gonna need this one, though. I don't have that good of a memory. All right, so the three motors series that we're talking about is the L61, the LSJ, and the LNF. All right, so the L61, as you can see right on top, is pretty much an entry-level motor that was put into many Chevy Cobalts, Chevy Malibus. In the United Kingdom, Australia, and Europe, this motor was also put in their vehicles, and it was known as the Z22 SE. And following the GM Fiat agreement, this engine was also put in the Fiat Croma and Alfa Romeo models as well. This engine, since it's an entry-level engine made for a daily driver vehicle, was designed for smoothness. It has dual in-block balance shafts that were integrated into the engine design. So for the most part, I know Honda motors. I know D series, B series, 8 series, K series, F series. It's much, all right, we got some driving over there, street cleaning. So Honda motors are very easy to identify because on the block itself, they have a stamping of what engine it is, and it's very easy to identify, where this GM engine is very tricky because there's no stamping on it. All right, this motor has a 86mm bore and a 94.6mm stroke. And I got two compression numbers from this motor, so I'm not sure which one we have. There's one that is 9.5:1 compression ratio, and then there's another one that's a 10.0:1 compression ratio. Again, since we can't identify what block directly this is, we cannot say. And roughly this motor right here produces 145 horsepower and 155 torque. That is crank numbers, which isn't too shabby. The R18A1 Honda motor in my 2007 Civic only produces 140 horsepower and 139 pound-feet of torque. So this has a little bit more power to it. And yes, it has a little bit more displacement. From what I recall, this is probably a 2.2 liter motor. There were variations, some were 2.2, some were 2, some were 2.4, but I'm just looking at the valve cover and I'm trying to compare other makes and models and what they have. And it looks like a 2.2. I'm just gonna go with 2.2 until further ado, okay? So again, L61, ladies and gentlemen, basic engine put in these cars, made for fuel economy, fuel efficiency, smoothness, just long-lasting daily driver type of motor. And on to the next motor. Over the years, GM decided they needed more power. They wanted to make a faster car, so they created models such as the Cobalt SS, the Saturn Redline. The Cobalt SS and some other generations actually created a motor that was named the LSJ. This motor was supercharged. It featured a Eaton root type supercharger, which was air to liquid cooled. And the motor itself shared a lot of the same things as the L61 block did, but it was much improved. It had piston cooling jets, oil cooler, better pistons, better forged connecting rods, crankshaft was better, and you know, other accessories such as that. The good thing about that motor is it brought to the table 205 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque, and their compression ratio was 9:5:1. Which wasn't bad, and it was featured in the Cobalt SS, Saturn Ion Redline, and unfortunately the LSJ motor, the supercharged one, was discontinued in 2007, but it had a forged steel crankshaft, strengthened connecting rods, and redesigned pistons, and the motor had potential because with a smaller pulley, more fuel management, you can create decent power. And the torque output was instant because, as you guys know, a supercharger kicks in right away. There's power delivery on low RPMs compared to a turbocharger. And speaking of turbochargers, that leads me to the next engine that GM produced, and this engine was called the LNF. The LNF was a turbocharged engine. It was a turbocharged direct injection Ecotec engine introduced in 2007 after the supercharged motor was discontinued. And this one, so this is where the Saturn Sky and the Pontiac Solstice GXP, they had that engine, 2.0 turbo. It also featured a 86mm bore and stroke, and the compression ratio of that was 9 to 2 to 1, and it created maximum boost of about 20 psi, delivering 260 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. So that was pretty much, for a four-banger, the strongest engine GM built at that time. Leaps and years above the supercharged motor. You got 60 more horsepower and much more torque. And in December of 2008, GM released a turbo upgrade kit for the LNF, which is the turbo motor, which increased horsepower to 290 horsepower and 340 pound-feet of torque. That's why you love the GM Performance division. They created, it's like for German cars, you have APR that tunes the Volkswagens and Audis. Well, GM here increased just about 30 horsepower, and we're talking about 80 pound-feet of torque by creating this turbo upgrade kit available to the public, which is great. And the kit only retailed, it seems like, for $650, which included a remapped engine calibration and upgraded map sensors. And the best thing, it was covered by GM warranty. And that motor also had a forged steel crankshaft, forged steel connecting rods and pistons. And pretty much, man, that motor, I see cars making 400, 500 horsepower on those stock blocks. Well, that's all that was on that paper. Unfortunately, the one we picked up was the L61, which is the bare bone, the underdog, I guess, you know. And I see a lot of people actually converting these motors. They're using parts from those other supercharged models, throwing them in here, throwing the supercharger on these L61s as well. Obviously, we don't care about any of that because all we care about is to dissect this engine, check out the internals, check what was wrong with this engine and such. As you guys can see, we got a handy dandy torque wrench here. I know Mr. Funk commented on my channel and he's saying we need to get a torque wrench. Man, this is all I got. It looks like a Kmart brand, and this is like you know, the one with the needle torque wrench. It doesn't even click. So if we're gonna torque anything down, which I don't think we will, we might use that. So if you guys want to support the channel, you want to see more, hit that like button. Let's get this channel growing. Let's get some 5,000 subscribers. We can start investing back into tools, into gear, into a property, into a vehicle. We can supercharge or turbocharge and build, or whatever, paint, build. You know, we're learning as we go along. And don't judge me that I'm drinking a Corona. It's my day off. And I just worked the last who knows how many days, single shifts, double shifts, night shifts. So just let me do me, all right? Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something about the motor. As a summary, L850 is the top of the chain here. It's general, and then it divides into the L61, into the LSJ, and the LNF. And there's more models under that, and that, like I said before, it varies based on the accessories they have and the technology improvements. They had different code names, but this is what I'm sticking with. So yeah, all right guys, so make sure you subscribe, because in the next few videos we're going to be trying to check the compression of this motor, start tearing it apart, because I don't want this motor to sit here like the last few motors I had. They pretty much sat. I didn't really get much done to them. I know it's winter, but I got ambient lighting in here. Hopefully you guys can see me okay. Once it gets colder and we're really gonna tackle this motor, we're gonna be closing the garage down. We're gonna throw in a little space heater right over here to keep the area warm so we can work in here comfortably, and we'll go from there. So thank you. We'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.
I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet plane, I'ma do it all for you. Come along and see it's true.